So, hello everybody. We're slowly gonna start with the presentation. Give me a sound and a sign if you hear us well.
Yes.
You hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear. Can you also hear Svar? Yes, we can hear him. So Svar is going to give us a presentation today on the roaring times of London, and especially with his personal approach of transitioning in the 90s. And he's describing it, the late 90s, and how it was into the future, where transitioning by hormones like testosterone was still, was it illegal?
No.
No, it was not illegal.
I can carry on from there if you like.
Yes. So he's now here in Zurich for visiting us at the Bitwäscherei Zürich, which is at the Zentralwäscherei Zürich, and we have a small hackerspace here. We're gonna continue to host lots of workshops and invite all interesting artists from our network. And so Svar we met through the artist Julie Chen, who some might know through her VIA work, but Svar himself has all this big story and package of his experience of life, underground London. So please join and have a good look.
Hi everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you, Maya. Well, I'm very pleased to be here in Zurich, and it's snowing, and it's my first time in Switzerland, and I have a chocolate box image out of my bedroom window. Right, here we go. I'm going to start by saying that there are some images in this presentation that are quite explicit, and I think really if you've got any kids in the room, or if you're under 18, then you should have supervision. And also, I suppose, if you are adult and sort of slightly squeamish or moralistic. Okay, so the title here, In-TransIT, it, he, they, is talking about pronouns, because, as you know, now in trans, pronouns are always quite important. People want to be called, not it, obviously, but he or they or she. And you can see these are passport photos of me through the ages. At this time, when I transitioned, it was 1996 that I first started, and London was sort of, now I've got to get my next slide, sorry. London was sort of like this. There were still telephone boxes around, public telephone boxes with all these cards in. You can probably just about see in the telephone box that there are postcards stuck on the glass, and those are all the postcards for different sorts of sex workers that you can find. And this one I just found in my archive, which I obviously took for various reasons, not because I was going to phone it, but just because I thought it was interesting that there was a trans guy. There are lots of trans women sex workers, but this was my first trans guy that I found. Now, back then, back in the day, this was my gender recognition certificate. It's just a simple document from Dr. Russell Reed, who was the psychiatrist, the main psychiatrist for transsexuals, confirming my name, there we go, and his signature. And I had to carry this around with me all the time in case I got into trouble with the police or anybody who was confused. So that's what I did, and that was my passport. That was my trans passport. Now things are a lot more complicated with getting recognition for, as a trans. Okay, the small one's me, and the big one's my friend Ashley Hunt's child, who we called Hunts in this time. And as you can see at the top of the slide, it says, I am my own exp, and that's my own experiment. And I am my own experiment. Hans and I shared a studio building, so we were very lucky. We each had a floor of a warehouse as our studios. I have some images later of my studio. And we did that. It was in Hackney in East London for several years. We had this space, and we used it for all sorts of wonderful exploits, some of which you shall see. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is something from the TV.
Collection, Tuesday night on 4.
Back to Sunday night now on 4 and first sex.
Welcome to First Sex. In part 1, Changing Attitudes to Battered Women, the Princess of Wales allows First Sex to film a private visit to a women's refuge, computer games for girls, and the new wave of British women film directors. And in part 2, a powerful investigation into rape in war. But first, a short message from filmmaker Angela Hans-Schur.
The fresh workforce. Eager, compelled, committed. In 1993, women will still be earning 21% less than men. Do you mind?
So that was a little film that we made for First Sex. Yes, I was the one with the F on my forehead, and I was narrating the whole thing. So that was me who was saying, "Do you mind?"
Collection, Tuesday night on 4.
Now this is this is another piece of film that that I made, and this, I'm just going to find out this is another character that I played, and he's called Spider Cunt Boy, and he's from another film by Hans, a big feature film called Dandy Dust. So this is just a little episode of my my role.
horrible, horrible little thing.
I can change into a long, big, pleasant thing if you want. Anything you like, Biscuit.
Don't you call me Biscuit. You, I love you. Where are you, people devil?
Catch me.
Hey, Dandy, I have the power to time travel.
How would you do that?
I just do. I spied your feverish fingerings in this text. It's well stained and smells of youthful discontent. Why mutilate your dreams, Dandy?
I am beyond such childish preoccupations with time. Tradition has begun my chosen path. I must fulfill my social obligations and uphold the duty and honor of my father's house. Tend the land, husband, the livestock, and nurture my ancestors' graves.
Don't bullshit me. I am an artist. Just follow the spider's hair.
We have to be back in the morning.
By the way, there's a condition attached to this. I don't want to be so rudely interrupted in this violent manner next time I come to visit you. I'll be your house demon. Don't you see? I'm offering to serve and please you. I'm good, you know.
Agreed. Next time we'll play.
Give me your word.
I give you my word. Let's change location.
We're going to pay a visit to one of your future selves.
Which future?
3075. We have to speed up your sexual development, my boy.
So yes, Spider Cunt Boy, and that was Dandy Dust. That we made that film in the studio building, which we called the Factory, and it involved an immense number of queer people from London at the time, and I think everybody in there was queer. In the cast was queer, apart from Theo, who is a little boy who plays Dandy when he's a child, and it was really very entertaining. And my role was not just Spider Cunt Boy, but also to make a lot of the miniature models and some of the special effects, and also the voiceovers. So moving swiftly along, I'm coming to some photography here. These are photos by Orit Asheri, and she was very kindly gave me a photo shoot, and these are just images of me playing around with the ropes, and I've got this stonking great big dildo on there, you know, as you can see. There's one thing about trans, female to male, is that the effects of the testosterone give you a very high sex drive, especially at the beginning, and it's like a second adolescence, really. And there's a lot of, when I transitioned, so say from about, let's see, so 96, the end of the 90s and through to the new millennium, then the F2M trans community there was this thing that we used to talk about. We used to talk about passing, which was passing as a man, because it was very important in those days. We didn't have like non-binary and so on, and you know, like queer people just, you know, like doesn't really matter what you are, you know, or you don't have to fit into a particular category. But in those days you really had to, otherwise if you cause confusion then you were likely to get into trouble. And there was always a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of homophobia around at that time, but transphobia was, if it happened, then it was really quite extreme. So, yeah, passing. And the other thing also was pissing, because obviously, if you're a guy, then if you go to you have to go to the urinals, you have to go to the men's toilets. You cannot be in a club needing to go to have a pee and go into the women's toilet. It's just not going to happen, especially if there are bouncers around. So pissing was another issue. And another issue was packing. And packing was where you would, what is wearing something in your underpants to create a lump, to create the nuance of some sort of effect of male genitalia. So passing, pissing and packing, and the whole of that, so that was F2M, but the whole of the trans community as well. I've noticed in our meetings, or if there are parties, social gatherings of trans women and trans men, then we talk a lot about surgery. So even though you can just have met somebody, you can say to the, you know, you are quite likely to say, you know, like, oh, how far along are you? Have you, you know, had any bottom surgery yet? Or what if you, and, you know, we would talk about the most intimate things with people who we'd just met, because we're all in the same boat in that respect, and we share each other's vulnerabilities, and there is a very special sort of a support and a closeness in the trans community. So of course we talk about genitalia as well, which is, again, is not just something that you really would sort of start talking about if you were just meeting some people at a party or something, but that's the difference. And of course sex and sexuality. So this presentation is in a way about all of those things, because they kind of preoccupied my time during that time, this time when I was doing my transition. Another thing, when I was doing my transition, I actually did my master's at Central St Martin's. I did an MA in fine art, so I was able, luckily, to theorize, and my second adolescence, and so I was able to at least vocalize it and make some sort of contemporary sense of it. And also I made sculpture, so I have later some sculpture. First though, I must just show you this. This is a little excerpt from my friend's film St Pelagius, and he actually recorded a lot of us queers as angels reborn.
Body. There's sort of nothing of it. It never matured in a way. It just stayed in this semi-child, adolescent female stage. My body's sort of always let me down. It's always let my mind down, or my perception of myself down.
And the main change that I felt as soon as I started feeling the testosterone in my body is that suddenly I felt more natural. I feel that my soul somehow now it has a physical body in which it can really develop.
There we go. I'm just looking at the credits on that film actually, and I'm just realizing we're the same people over and over again. And that was one thing. We did have a bit of a community, a bit like a family of trans people and others, our friends and familiars. Okay, talking about pissing. This is one of my many productions, and it's a device for pissing if you have female genitalia, and I actually patented it. I got a patent certificate and number from the patent office, so I'm quite proud. The one here on the front of this leaflet is the large one. That was a big circumcised one, and the one in the pictures that you can see, it's pissing and then it's packing and then it's just being handheld, is the smaller one. It's actually the more practical one. I actually have one with me. I have my own with me that I brought in just to show you, and you can try it if you want, as long as you just wash it under the tap. So here it is, lovely. I'll pass it round. Okay, so the next slide, I've done workshops with this. This is in Vienna, and these are my friends in the workshop, and as you can probably make out, we're all got our urinary devices, and we're pissing off a balcony, and below us there is actually a bathtub. It was really good fun. We stayed there until everybody managed it. Here's another one. That's me using it in my young transhood. And the image on the right is a medical sort of display. That was actually from a live art performance, a live art exhibition that we had in Toronto. I'm going to show you quickly some drawing that I've been doing as well all along the life drawing, just because it's something that I do every month or so, and I'm showing you this because I am actually doing a drawing workshop here tomorrow, but also because I've always been around naked bodies, so I don't have any inhibitions about nudity. I like it very much. So there we go. Okay, now the little drawing on the bottom right is actually from one of my drawing workshops in Berlin. Right, next I'm going to show you my friend who is on the right in this image, Geordie Jones. It's a short clip from about 1994. And it's Geordie and his friend showing us how to make a good packer. And it was actually Geordie I met Geordie in London, and he was with Stafford, another guy, and they had started their transition. They were taking their testosterone. They're from San Francisco, and it was the first time that I had actually witnessed the female to male transition being, and I was really inspired. He inspired me to transition.
Economics class. Put it in the knee-high pantyhose part thing, and then what you do is you twist it and double it back on itself, like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this toe seam, and you're going to take it in your fingers and roll it backwards, like that. And then you take the two ends and you bring them underneath and you hold them together. And you take a needle and thread. I'm using one thread so you can actually see. And you sew this part together. Cheap ways to be a tranny. You know, if you know some really nice fag who likes to make dresses or something to help you out. So that's sort of the end product, and you can get them in, white or black or, various sample colors, and whatever you like. Free willies.
I've always used the men's room since I was about 14 years old. It was just more comfortable. And it's really kind of funny because in men's rooms, unless it's a gay bar, the men pay no attention to you because they don't want to be caught looking at another man. So you can just walk right in and, even if you're obviously not a man, they probably won't notice because they're so self-involved in there anyway.
If it's available, I tend to use a stall because I prefer privacy. Then I don't have to stand there and whistle or wait for somebody to leave. With clothing on, I do need a mechanism, and I just use a round bit of plastic about so big, flat. You roll it up so that one end is narrow, comes to a spout like this, and the other end is wide with an opening on the top. It's quite discreet.
Geordie, I'm still in touch with him. He lives with his husband. He's married. He's to a cis man, which is a biological man. And they were living in the mountains, California mountains, but they've moved a couple of years ago to Hawaii. So he's in Hawaii now. Okay, the erotic Oscars. I was very proud to have won in 2001, 21 years ago. The Lady Trust gave me my erotic award, which is this big golden cock with wings, big golden flying cock. And I was voted Artist of the Year by the Sex Maniacs jury for conspicuous sexuality. And the Lady Trust actually brings, it deals with issues of sex and sexuality with people with disabilities, and acknowledges and helps with sexual expression. So I'm going to show you some work now which I did at that time and which won me this award. So these two are, I'm terrible with names. I mean, I've got dick nose and clit nose here. But actually the one on the left is a sheep's skull. And the one on the right is a ram's skull that I've modelled on top of with plaster. And I've been using casting, for example, on the one on the right, then I've cast ears and modelled them on. So yeah, I started working with bone, and here this great big skull I found. I was finding the bones, the skulls in my own walks, so they were found objects. So this one I call, this one is Great Oryx, the big one, and Great Oryx has these two children who are a dick nose and clit nose, and they are exhibited and make the lone parent family. Great Oryx was also in another exhibition on their own, and I sold them to a guy who wanted, and they went to New York. So Great Oryx is in New York in some venue. I haven't actually seen them. I haven't been to New York for ages. Okay, we're going through my sculptures quite quickly. The serpents, I do a lot of modelling and then making moulds and casting from moulds. I spent quite a long time working in a bronze foundry, and I was able to put my own work through. And this one particularly was very successful. It's called Cat Yogi. And the one in the middle is a bronze with this lovely green patina, which takes ages to create with acids and heating the bronze to the right temperature with a blowtorch and pasting it on. And it went into the Royal Academy summer show, and I put it in and I exhibited it with an edition of 9. Because I had the mould, I made the bronze, an edition of 9. And I sold out the whole lot. I sold the whole edition. So cats have 9 lives, and there are 9 Cat Yogi bronzes. Working with bone again, Cyber Bitch on the right has got horns as legs, and on the left there's more horns as of legs with Cyber Baby, and they're both also got cast genitalia. They are cast from my friends. So I did a lot of body casting, intimate body casting in my studio around this time. This is Dildonics. Oh, Alpin, there's little Alpin dominatrix on the left there, and that's a figurine that is about I'm thinking in inches here, but about 15 centimeters, 13 centimeters high, and that was part of my MA show, and it was actually bought by the Dean of Central St Martin's. So moving along, we have the Dick Trek. Pink Thing was made. Pink Thing was a found object, and it was actually the insides, it's cotton, and it was the insides of a futon. And I found there was this futon on the street, and this stuff was coming out, and I said, look at this wonderful cotton, this is fantastic, I'm sure I could use that for something, and took it to the studio and dyed it, and I literally pulled it out of the bucket I was dyeing it in, and it came out like this. So that was a sort of quite a remarkable found object. I'm hanging it on a meat hook, a butcher's hook, and in the image on the left it's in a chain, and it was a very high ceiling in this exhibition. Got another image of it a bit later. On the right you can see in the front this sage, it's a lovely little sculpture with a roe deer's skull. I think he appears later. And in the front there's a blue boy. You can see the pink thing in the back, and cyber bitch there. Details of these images went on to a big projection. You can just about see it on the top on that image. It was a big projection of 4 screens on the outside of the Lux Cinema in Hoxton Square, and it was part of the Brandon project, which was initiated by Shuli Chan, who Maya mentioned earlier, and who Maya and I met through Shuli, but much later. And these are images of my work, and there is actually some text that goes with it as well. Oops, sorry about that. I wanted to show you this. Just of the images, how they were projected, the imagery that was projected on the Lux. so it was quite hypnotic. There were 4 artists involved, and I was just one of them. And obviously, I have longer footage of the whole event, but moving swiftly along. Oh look, there I am posing with Sage and with Greatorix. That just gives you an idea of the scale of the sculptures. And on the right, there's an image of my lovely studio in Hackney. Hans's studio was below. Right, now we come to the photo by Dell of my young body, pre any operations there, and he calls it the Hermaphrodite Torso, which I think is a bit of a weird title, but anyway, Hermaphrodite Torso, it was quite popular, very popular at the time. Nobody was supposed to know that it was my body, but Dell let it slip, and it went all around the whole of the sort of queer community, and I was sort of recognised around, people were coming up to me and say, "Oh God, I've got I've got a copy of your photograph on the ceiling above my bed." So anyway, I was quite pissed off with Dell about that. Yeah, that thing on my chest is actually, I didn't know about this photo shoot until literally 2 hours before, and I was at my girlfriend's house, and we'd been silly the night before, and we were playing noughts and crosses on my chest with a magic marker. Okay, there's some of the pisses. Oh, this is a film. This is some TV film for TV called Clit TV.
About the clitoris. That's the
there's
question.
Del. This is in my studio.
So we both do work that is around, that deals with genitalia. Do you think that's fair to say?
I would say definitely.
Yeah. Some more directly than others. This project is called Transgenital Landscapes. These are mine. And we were considered women. Whether or not we have ever really been women is up for grabs.
I considered myself a woman. I was a female, but I would never identify as being a woman.
Well, Svar and I started it, maybe, a year apart, 6 months apart. We made the decision to take androgen, male hormones, testosterone, and to mutate into transgendered beings, sort of cyborgian end of millennium experience. And we both have the experience of our clitorises growing into what I call a dicklet. So it's not exactly a clit, it's not exactly a dick, it's a dicklet. And what do you call yours?
It depends. I used to call it a dicklet. Sometimes I call it a knob. Sometimes I do call it a dick or a cock.
Clitoris is an androgen-sensitive tissue. I mean, it grows, obviously, like the rest of the body, but it also grows with androgens. And females make a little bit of androgens, not anything like as much as males. Of course, males make 10 times more androgens in their blood than females do, but females do have androgens.
When I first took androgen, it grew quite quickly. I would say within a month, it had developed, at least half of its growth, and the sex drive was enormous compared to what it had been. And the orgasms were much more intense, longer lasting, and I started to ejaculate, which I'd never done before. People get very, very, very angry if they can't tell if you're male or female.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the streets, there's the confusion. They actually get really confused.
What makes us different than transsexuals, in a way, is that we are happy with our genitals. We chose to have these genitals, and we knew that it wasn't going to be, some 9-inch wall. Sometimes I think that would be nice, and sometimes mine is 9 inches in my head. But it still started life as a clitoris.
In many pornographic books, you get this sort of idea that the clitoris becomes erect. It's actually incorrect. It hasn't got a mechanism to be stiff. What it has got a mechanism is to swell up. whereas the penis has a mechanism to swell up, pubescence, and it has a mechanism to become erect, so that in fact it has become stiff and can penetrate. You don't need the clitoris to penetrate anything. It only needs to get suffused with blood so that it becomes more sensitive.
I've known women who have used this and have found it like really, really pleasurable, really orgasmic. To me, it's just a means to an end.
Means to a bigger end.
Yeah, means to a bigger end.
What we're really saying when we talk about the clitoris not being represented, the clitoris being an object of horror and all the rest of it, is that we are actually saying that women don't have a right to enjoy themselves in bed, and that's bullshit.
Once we can let people know that they can talk about sex, or their genitals, or masturbation, any aspect of sexuality, they can talk about it to their friends.
There. So that was from Clip TV. It was a bit of a bad edit, but we're moving swiftly along. This is TV as well. A program called First Sex.
Is being a man all cock and balls? I'm going to introduce you to some people who think otherwise.
Sometimes when we go out, people think we
This is Ori Tashery.
Gay guys and, you know,
She became my partner after that photo shoot.
Sometimes they think we're just a straight couple. Depends on what we're wearing and mood and, you know, how we're playing it.
For me, the most refreshing thing about when we fell in love and we started our relationship was exactly that we could pass as a heterosexual couple in public and be affectionate and, you know, snogging at the bus stop. Whereas before, as a dyke or as a gay couple, there's still always looking over your shoulder to check that it's okay.
How do you see yourself in the future? Are you going to continue your injections?
Most definitely, I'm going to continue. It just feels right. It feels right for me. It's right for the sort of human that I am.
There we go. Now I'm going to take us back to some images of my work again, because I actually started to use them in film. So this is leading up to my film. This piece is called The Spiral, and you can see there it is in the daytime on the left, and then in the nighttime on the right. The Spiral. It's big, quite big. Here you can see it on the image on the right. You can see the spiral in the background. These planets are big perspex discs, and this was an installation in an empty shop over Christmas time, a New Year, for the Festival of Light, New Year, and so on. Another planet, more complicated one, and there's actually the sage posing with one of the planets, and that's because the sage features in this film. This is just a flyer for my film called Late Date, and the writing's too small to see. It was written by Dr. Rachel Armstrong. Rachel Armstrong was part of our gang at that time. She's a doctor. She's very into ecological issues. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's really worth looking about. She's got very extensive social media. Yeah, I'm not going to read it out for you, but I might as well. Svar's latest movie, Late Date, materializes this identity, I'm not going to read it out because I can't read the text, and I haven't copied it down. Anyway, but I will show you the film. Oh, 1997. There we go. That was quite successful, that film. It had its first screening ever, debut screening, in New York in the New Festival, and in its first London screening in the London Transgender Film Festival, which was at the Lux in Hoxton in 1997. Okay, now I'm going to show you next a film, a clip of a film called Venus Boys. And Venus Boys is actually made by a filmmaker called Gabriella Bauer, who is actually from Zurich. She is here in Zurich. She's not here today. She's away. She's out of the country. Otherwise, I would hook up with her because she's great. She's a friend. Venus Boys explores not just trans, but also drag kings, so females dressing up as guys and taking on male persona, as well as trans people. And she was working in New York, and then she came over to London. So this film is actually one of the last, it's the last movie clip that I'm showing, and again it's filmed in my studio, in the studio building, and it shows us, or shows the gang. So it's this clip again, it's about me, but it also shows the rest of the gang.
I wouldn't describe it as a dream coming true. I would describe, in a way, it's living the reality. It's living a reality of more completeness. If I always had to use the cubicle, I'd often have to wait a long time and hang out in the main men's toilet while everyone else is using the urinal, and that can be a bit weird. But because I have my prosthesis, then I just get on with it. They're not as clean as the female toilets, generally speaking. It's a prosthesis, and it's actually a device for people with female genitals to piss standing up. So it's a sort of a funnel. And it's called a pisser-packer because it's nice and soft silicone, so you can actually put it in your underpants and keep it there for when you need to go. Marinati twins, to start the game. Yes, I think it's Orlan who says my body is my software, and it's like, I would say that mine's actually my hardware. It is like a complete reprogramming. I'm a sculptor, so I'm used to transforming matter, but of course my own human body is another matter entirely. I have a cyborg identity, and yeah, I would consider myself a cyborg, but as I say, I am a human being, and you know, I mean, there are so many plurals of identity. A cyborg is somebody who's using that sort of the consciousness, if you like, of machines and prosthetics, using machines as a prosthetic as well. Just their identity isn't confined to their own human body. It's something to do with a broader consciousness of the self. Am I just a cyborg when I'm online? If I'm gardening, am I a cyborg?
You do phalloplasty. If you would have a cock, a functioning cock,
and would you? What would you do with your cunt?
Oh, I leave the cunt. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, really? Definitely. I don't know what I would do with my breasts though. No, I know what I would do. I would change them a little bit, but I would leave. I would become a hermaphrodite. Definitely.
Yeah.
You can actually grow from a cell of your body.
Yeah.
You can grow a dick. Maybe not nowadays, but soon, very soon.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I always wanted the genitals I have now, so I'm quite happy with those.
Anyway, yeah. Almost.
I think it would be wrong to assume that it's like a group of people all shooting up testosterone together. That's the kind of tabloid fear-mongering way of putting it, because we all did come to our individual decisions, and we all were going through the experience alone. I didn't tell you this.
Somehow, we are a bit of a family in that sense that, you know, and an alternative family, you know, people who are around, or if you really have a problem, you know you can call them.
And if there was a flood, it would flood. That was it. Well, happy birthday to me and everybody else.
So back in the day, yeah, Gabriella Bauer, Venus Boys. I've actually got the CD with me. If anybody wants to watch the whole movie, it's very entertaining. Okay, so I want to talk now a little bit about the future. This here, as you can see on the top left there, is a Swiss company who called ZSI, and they create prosthetics for phalloplasty and also for vaginoplasty. That one at the bottom there is an insert to go into the orifice that's created to shape the vagina, and the others are ways, different sorts of cocks that you can choose from for your phalloplasty. So that's the reality that contemporary. This is contemporary reality for trans men. It was Hunt who mentioned in Venus Boys about growing a cock from a cell from your body, and this, or you know, maybe not now, but soon. And this also is something that I've just always dreamt about, of being able to grow a cock in a laboratory and watch it, go and visit it every so often, watch it coming along, and then magically have it, not magically, because I do know all the nuts and bolts about how the surgery works, obviously, but then to have it constructed onto my body. And this was something that spurred me on. That mouse, ear mouse, do you remember ear mouse?
Stellar.
God, I'm so excited about it. I was really, I mean, obviously it's like, it's dreadful. I used this I've used this image in a proposal, and I've been criticised quite a lot from friends who I've shown the proposal to, who about animal rights and things. And I mean, I totally agree, but it was just the science of it was brought about all sorts of implications for stem cell experience. And there you've got Stellark, dear Stellark, who has always been, he's always done robotic prosthetics before. I've seen him in Paris several years ago, exhibiting a huge sort of arm extension thing that he had. He's actually growing an ear on his arm, and he wants to have it, eventually he wants to be able to hear through it as well, via microelectric implants. That's the end.
Look, I brought you the ear.
Oh, here we go. Is that the ear?
Yeah, we grow it in our lab, right?
Oh, you growing here in your lab? Great, we're going to talk about that afterwards.
Yes, yeah, maybe I'll show it to the people. So for those people who have ear fetishes as well.
Yes, I am one of those. I cast ears in my studio. I have several. Okay, so that's the that's the stem cell implications, and there is, you can see I've put the text here at the top, but that there is this is a little bit. Maya, can you just move the screen a little bit over to the right? Yeah, in Massachusetts. They've been doing it for ages. I mean, really, they're actually trying to grow penises for soldiers who are damaged by minefields and that sort of thing. But also penises for penis. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe I have a question about how in the future, like, do you think that is, first of all, is it possible to grow penises? And second, is it also discussed amongst the trans community?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yes. So
All sorts of possibilities, or any possibility is discussed and talked about, along with the surgery. It's kind of easier. This is one respect where it is easier for the male to females, because they have skin tissue available, their own skin tissue available for to use for modeling purposes, because there's a losing something rather than having to grow something. Yeah, of course we do, and we're waiting for Fachanti, his name is, the doctor in the consultant experimentalist in Massachusetts. We're waiting for this result to know. He's the one who's the most advanced. I would love to go out there. That's another thing, actually, to make a proposal to go to see for myself, actually, what's going on in his lab.
I thought it's interesting, like F to M or M to F. I imagine myself that F to M is a process that is somehow less invasive. I thought, like, because you don't have to cut off something. There's this, because there's two different ways of transitioning. One is by aesthetical chirurgy, and the other one is by the intake of hormones as well. So in both ways you have to take the hormones as well, but like this aesthetic surgery is something which is more invasive, I thought. And for the females, or the F to M transitioning, like I feel that there is the potential of growing something yourself, so it somehow becomes more organic.
Yeah,
or like more.
You say invasive, and I know what you mean, but also for the F2M, it's extremely invasive, because at the same time you're erasing your existing genitals, and you're having, because you don't have the skin tissue, you actually have a big chunk of your arm taken out to use the blood vessels and the muscle and the flesh, the skin. You have skin grafts from other part of your body, so you're losing skin from other parts of your body. So either you lose your left forearm, or like me, I refused, because I'm a sculptor, I need my arms. I can't have one arm just, it takes ages and ages to get some sort of muscles back. So for me, it's a thigh a big chunk out of my thigh. So you have a big, means that you can't walk for.
It's like a piece of muscle.
Piece of muscle, blood vessels. They want a certain sort of a blood vessel, and you have to obviously have your urethra extended, and so there's all sorts of invasive things going on around the clitoris. And obviously, if you want, you can have something sewn on top, but you still have to have this invasive things around your urethra to extend it to piss, and you can keep your clitoris underneath your cock, which then has implants, so you can still get an erection, but you have no feeling in it. So that was one aesthetic thing. And the other phalloplasty involves the clitoris being buried into the phallus, and then when it can still be stimulated. So you either keep it whole underneath or it's embedded into the phallus. And yeah, you can also keep your vagina, like Hans is saying, he would like to keep everything. And I have a friend as well who has kept everything. Or otherwise you can lose your vagina and have a wonderful scrotum created. There are sort of lots of different possibilities, and you choose. We know our surgeons, and we choose what we're going to go for. So.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So thank you so much for sharing in this very open way about this topic as well, like transitioning. And now listening to you, I realized that as a trans person, you really have all those options of like sexuality as well. It's both. It's ambiguous. It's like issues. It's options. It's like creating a discussion that, in the same time, also opens up like various doors. And here, I think it's interesting when you say that you are a cyborg. So this was something I thought like, oh, that's new for me. Maybe can you explain a bit more on this? What you mean?
Well, it's this having plural identities where you can hack into any identity that you. I think if you use prosthetics in any way, then you're heading towards part cyborg, or if you're I think even if you're, God, I think we're all cyber these days, especially now that everybody's got a computer, we're always on our screens. When I was saying that years and years and years ago, I had my fantastic little old PowerBook, and I took it everywhere. I used it to make my movie. My movie was made with my little webcam. It's very low res, and I took it everywhere. I took my laptop and my little camera everywhere I went to film everything on low res, and sort of turning it around and moving it. And it was like I needed it, for a while. It was just part of my, now we take our mobile phone around with us. I didn't have a mobile phone till quite later on, but I used to take my PowerBook and my little camera.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see that within this time of biopolitics, like as Paul Preciado says, biopolitics in time of pharma pornography. So for me, thinking of transitioning, I always thought of, it's invasive. You have to do surgery to change your genitals and become a different sex as well. And now I see with this book also, by reading Paul Preciado, I realized there's biopolitics which are working on a much different level, which are working on a molecular level that changes so much in your thinking. When you describe the process of passing, right? Mm-hmm. So a very strong and very strong, emotionally strong, but also from the how would you call this? It really becomes embodied as well on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, like the hormones. I mean, hormones play a huge part of our being. They influence the way we think so much. You really don't realize that. So, you know, and obviously if you're remapping your physiology in that way, then there are going to be all sorts of changes to, like, I don't know, organs are going to have to change and adapt everything. I mean, it's quite a process, and, you know, it's like you have to eat well, try not to like take too many drugs and drink too much. I mean, you know, or if you do, because you're having such a wild time, because you're out there every night, you know, having your second, like, teenage boys, adolescents, you want to do everything, and you want to do it like mad. Yeah, Paul is talking also about now, and it's great. Things are very different now. For in terms of passing, you don't have to pass. Paul actually is somebody as well who says, I'm a trans man, so I don't have to have surgery because I'm not trying to be a man. Mm-hmm. I'm a trans man, I don't even have to, you know, so he's not worried about surgery. He's not into it particularly, and these days, of course, that was a possibility. Back in my day, you had to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and so that in order that you could receive your hormones to, you know, make you better. So, you know, it's like I wasn't a somebody who felt they were born in the wrong body. I was experimental artist who had always been queer and never wanted to have children or anything. I mean, I was 36 when I started my transition, so it wasn't that I hadn't had quite a full life as a female, and you know, I did dance and performance and was still making sculpture. I mean, you know, things haven't really changed that drastically in terms of my career, my profession. Yeah, but what has changed is the politics and the way trans now has a place. And Paul is great because he theorizes everything. He maps in the right language, in a sort of a contemporary, critical, theoretical, and medical and psychological language. A new way of thinking, so like a non-binary and not phallocentric way of judging body or psychological issues of things, of being male and female. I mean, it's so phallocentric, this sort of psychology and socialization. That sort of changes. When we started as trans, our activism was by visibility. We just got out there and made ourselves as visible as possible. Yes. And as controversial as possible as well, to put trans on the map. Have a transgender film festival. You know, we created the first London trans film festival, and Gabriella's film and our work and Dandy Dust and our work in the factory was to be visible and have that, get trans out there as a visual thing and as a creative thing, and, you know, not as something to be embarrassed about, like I'm in the wrong body, and, you know, sort of that you sort of stayed away until you were sort of like all right because you'd had a sex change. You know, it was about process and enjoying it and experimenting it and expressing it and showing it off.
Yes, thank you so much, Svar.
You're
Thank you
very
so
welcome.
much for sharing all this. And
Thank you very much.
you're still going to stay for another few days in Switzerland. You will have a drawing workshop tomorrow,
Yeah.
right, at Bitwäscherei Zürich. Come and join us. And otherwise, going back to London, can we find you in London as well? Where can we find you?
You can find me in London. I shall give you an address to find me.
Okay. But thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks for watching as well.
Thank you.